Hello my dears, this is B. Harper from supermarcy.com and welcome to a very, very special review. Now originally, today was going to be yet another installment of AJ and B's Review Exchange, but I decided to do something very, very different. Given I've been working on this site since 2012, I've come to the realization that I could basically review any goddamn thing I want. So I'm going to abuse this power that has been given to me by reviewing the excellent, the brilliant, the long-awaited Hellsing, the Ultimate OVA. Hellsing. I remember coming into contact with this series in like 2002, and around this point I feel I should give a little bit of history about what I'm going to be talking about here. So, Hellsing originally started life as a manga that was published in a magazine known as Young King Hours, and it was the brainchild of Kota Hirano. Now, the manga itself spanned from 1997 to 2009, so quite some time, and it was made into an animated series. Now, that was where I came in. I actually saw the animated series around about the same time it came out, and that ran from, say, 2001 to 2002. Now, when I first saw it, I fell absolutely in love with it, and I fell in love with Alucard and every other character in the series, but with the benefit of retrospect, I kind of have to say that the animated series is completely inferior to the Hellsing OVA. Why do I say that? Well, as you can probably already assume, since the manga wasn't finished yet, what the animated series had to do was tie up its own ends and try to formulate its own story, and it was successful in some places, but not quite so in the others, like the character of Incognito. Sorry. And, well, finally though, in 2006, right up to 2012, the Hellsing Ultimate OVA was made. Now, this took some time, of course. They had to animate it, they had to translate it, they had to, you know, provide voiceovers and dubbing, and every little sort of minute detail had to be covered during the production. But it's here, it's out, and it is marvellous. So, that being said, the basic plot line is as follows. You have the Hellsing organization, and that is a Protestant, shall we say, ultra-secret covert operation sort of thing, and it is headed up by Integra Wingates Hellsing. Integra is a badass. She is the direct descendant of Abraham van Helsing, who also happens to be one of the main slayers of Count Dracula, and in her possession she has Alucard. And Alucard, as you've probably assumed, just judging by the name, you know, Alucard spelled backwards is Dracula. She has Dracula in her possession. And not just any Dracula. She has the literary as well as the historical equivalent of Dracula combined in one. Now, the thing is about Alucard, he is the Lord of Darkness. He can summon upon the deepest, darkest, most malignant superpowers you can imagine, and he can make any of his opponents dust if he were so to will it. And it also involves the character of Ceres Victoria, who was a young policewoman. Now, I'm not going to divulge into any sort of the more crucial details about the storyline and how the characters came to be and everything, because the way I see it, when you watch it yourself, or rather when you read it in the manga, you get to peel back all the details at your own leisure, and you come to realize and appreciate the depths that this has. And Ceres is essentially the human character, even though that she's turned by Alucard in like the first episode or so. But she's coming to terms with what she has become. She's become a vampire, and she has a very sort of compassionate soul about her. She doesn't automatically lose whatever morality she used to have. A lot of Hellsing basically divulges into how, you know, Ceres perceives everything. When she wakes up in the Hellsing organization, her whole entire world has turned upside down thanks to Alucard. And these two have a very unique relationship, and a surprisingly refreshing one at that. It could have been so easy for Alucard to make Ceres his bride, but he doesn't. She is his student, and along the way he teaches her how to truly live up to being a vampire. And she's reluctant about this. She feels that if she were to give herself over to the darkness, so to speak, she would no longer be herself. Now, towards the end of it, she becomes mensch. Now, even though mensch is more or less referred to, you know, a paragon of being a man, it's actually a unisex term, so I'm going to use this very freely. The Hellsing manga, as well as the Ultimate OVA, have female mensches. As I mentioned before, Integra doesn't back down from anybody. She's authoritative, she's intelligent, she's fucking fearless. She is in possession of a weapon of darkness, of Satan. And also, her relationship with Alucard is very refreshing because, once again, there's no sort of romantic interest. Now, it could be up to debate as to whether or not there could be something there, but thankfully, there is none of that of which you see. There is just tremendous respect between them. Alucard himself is a very straightforward character when you first see him. He loves to kill. He loves to humiliate and turn his opponents into quivering little bitchy messes, and he loves to go out and pick fights. That is what he lives for. Given the fact that when he was a human, he was, you know, a warrior prince, of course he would have that sort of quality when he is, you know, being a vampire, and when he's going out there, and under Integra's orders, he will happily kill anyone who gets in her way. There is no compassion from Alucard. Well, when I say that, here's the thing about Alucard. As time goes on, and as you come to understand where he comes from and his past and everything, it becomes very apparent there is something in there, but it is hidden so deep down. And his kindness and his respect and his compassion comes with a price. It's pretty freaking cool. So that being said, with that out of the way, the general plotline of Hellsing is very wide-spanning. It starts out as one thing and it becomes something completely different by the time it's over. And that comes from a sense of the fact that you're dealing with vampires. You could basically do anything you want if you are willing to commit yourself to the story. This all starts out as a very intimate tale from Ceres's perspective, but then quite a few major things happen, and towards the end of the story, things have completely got out of control. This basically involves a prelude, if you will, to World War III. That's all I'm going to say, but those of you who have read the manga as well as seen the series, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and it is so brilliant. But of course, there is opposition. You have the Iscariot organization, and the Iscariot are basically, shall we say, the Roman Catholic equivalent of Hellsing. They are very religiously inclined. They're headed up by Enrico Maxwell, and Enrico Maxwell is a splendid little shit. He's basically the one who goes out there and decides who lives and who dies if they don't follow the same religion. He is a religious zealot, but he's also an intelligent one. He's somewhat of a reflection of Integra, but if I had to choose between them, I would go for Integra. She's awesome. But at Enrico Maxwell's behest, you have the Paladin Alexander Anderson. And Anderson, he is something else. He has the power to regenerate from any sort of illness or injury, as it were. And this is played on splendidly when Alucard and Anderson face off. Every time they do it, they know they can do anything they want to each other, and they just go all frickin' out. Alucard has two specially made guns designed to get rid of vampires in the most painful way possible. And as per with Vlad Dracula and his more sadistic tendencies that we've read about in history, Alucard is like that. He and Anderson just will fuck each other up any chance they get. But the thing is with Anderson, even though he is completely crazy and he is so engulfed in his beliefs and his values and everything, for some reason he has a very genuine soft spot for the orphans that he presides over. You see, Anderson runs an orphanage that takes, you know, young youths in, and he takes care of them. But suspiciously enough, he's not one of those pedophilic priests. He genuinely cares and loves the children that he's been charged to take care of. And it's just, there's this really awesome scene in a museum when Alucard and Anderson face off. Now, all the while, Anderson has his bunch of kids there, and Sorry, that was my little message going on. Anderson has a bunch of kids there, and you know, this crisis is averted by Sarah's Victoria, the police girl, and it's just so freaking comedic. That's another thing about this series. Despite all the gore and the horror sort of aspects, it is still really, really funny, and that's what the OVA focuses on. In the animated series, it took itself very, very seriously, and that's another thing that's kind of worked against it. The manga is very hilarious as well. It's got some really great moments, like, as well as some fantastic sight gags. And the OVA capitalizes on that. It capitalizes on everything that is in the manga and, like, amps it up to 1,000. It is just so, it's just so beautiful. Oh, and the animation. The Hellsing animated series has nothing on the OVA. Right. The OVA is visually amazing. You can see how much time and manpower was put into shading every cell and ensuring every single frame is just at maximum velocity. It's just so good. I'm going to incorporate some stills at the bottom and give you a couple of panels from the manga while I'm at it. But just to give you an idea about how richly detailed it is, you can see basically every detail that's on a character's face in a close-up. No expense was spared when it came to making this series and giving it the ability to live up to the manga's status. It's just so good. This is something that you need to see for yourself, but what I love most about it is how it subverts as well as plays with the whole sort of vampire legend. Yes, it's Dracula, but no, he doesn't have an aversion to crosses. He may have an aversion to silver and a couple of other things, but Alucard has just come to that point of which, you know, he's evolved. He has evolved beyond what he used to be, and when you find out more about who he is and everything and about his experiences as a human being, you come to realize that the monster has a core. The monster has something deep within him, and when he has Ceres with him, she is able to remind him of what it was like to be able to feel. It's a complicated sort of relationship, and even though I make it sound rather straightforward, when you watch it for yourself, episode by episode, you come to realize that there is far more going on in this series than you can possibly wrap your head around if you were to just read it off the bat. Another thing with the Hellsing is that Kota Hirano has his finger on pop culture. He makes some pretty obscure references, but for the most part, this is a man who is very heavily anachronistic. He's kind of like Quentin Tarantino in a way. He will completely take another thing from another time frame and put it in this series, like be it a character or a quote or a person or a celebrity, if you will. I'm not going to say anything more about that, but there are some really awesome cameos in the Hellsing series that relates to pop culture, and one of them happens to be a fairy who lives in Ceres's really big gun. Ceres Victoria gets some really big guns in this manga. It's actually very, very impressive, but the entire arsenal that the Hellsing organization has, you could run like a mini war with these weapons. It is so damn good. So that being said, the Hellsing Ultimate OVA gets a 5 out of 5 from me. The bigger it gets, the more epic in scope it becomes. What you thought started out as one thing completely transforms by the time the final episode runs. Hellsing Ultimate OVA. Get your hands on it. So thank you very much for listening to me ramble, guys, and as usual, I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye for now.